Composition of functions. By this, we mean we compose two or more functions. And whenever we do that, we put one function into another. Now, this video will assume that you have complete fluency with evaluating functions. If not, then you would want to watch that video first. So let's do a quick refresher on evaluating functions. If I have a function, say f of x equals negative 3x squared plus 2x minus 5, and I'm asked to evaluate f of 2, or let's say f of negative 2. So what I would need to do is I would need to use this formula. I'm going to copy that formula except for x. So wherever I see an x, I'm going to use parentheses, but I'll copy the rest of it. So I'm not going to copy the x, but I will still copy the square part, and then plus 2, and then for x I'm going to leave parentheses, and then I'm going to copy the minus 5. And what goes inside the parentheses is this input of negative 2. So this should be my first step in evaluating functions. What this formula is telling me is that if the input is x, then this is going to be my output. It's negative 3 times x squared plus 2 times x minus 5. And for a specific input, I would use that particular input. So that's why I need to have parentheses. This is the first step. And after this, it's all about using the order of operations and then simplifying and bringing it down to a single number. Now, in the order of operations, you have to do the exponents before you do the multiplications. Actually, parentheses take precedence, but in the parentheses, there is nothing. I have two sets of parentheses, but I don't have anything to do inside the parentheses. So I go to the next priority operation, which is exponents. So let me just do that in this step. When I square negative 2, I get positive 4. So this is going to be negative 3 times 4. And that's all I'm going to do in this step, because this step is only for exponents. Now let me carry out the multiplications. Negative 3 times 4 is negative 12, and I will copy the plus, but 2 times negative 2 is actually negative 4, so it would be negative 4. It's not a plus. I could have written plus negative 4, but that plus was unnecessary. And then I have a minus 5. Now, there are no multiplications to be done. It's all additions and subtractions. So negative 12 minus 4 minus 5 is negative 21. Now that's how we evaluate functions. For the same function, if I'm given something else besides number, so say if it is a, then really there's nothing to be done. All I have to do is replace the x by a, and I get that. And I cannot do anything with that, so that's my final answer. But sometimes I may have to go a little bit further. I may be asked to do f of, say, x plus 3. In that case, again, I'm going to copy my formula except for the x part, and then I'll plug the input of x plus 3 here. Now this is a little bit longer because now, unlike the previous example, I could square negative 2. Here, I would have to square x plus 3. It's a binomial that you cannot combine these two terms. So you would have to FOIL it, and then, so that's the first thing you would be doing whenever you're squaring x plus 3. And then you multiply by negative 3 and simplify. And finally, you would get an expression involving x. So that's evaluating functions. Now, when you talk about composition of functions, you would be given two functions or more, but mostly it would be two. So let's begin with two functions. So say I have negative 3x squared plus 2x minus 5. I'm using the same function as in the previous problem. And then there would be one other function. So this function, say, let's say this is 2x plus 7. Now, some students will confuse composition with multiplication. Those are two different things. So let's talk about multiplication first. So if you have to multiply these two functions, f of x, g of x, then you simply write this negative 3x squared plus 2x plus 5, and you multiply with 2x plus 7. Now this is not composition, I just want to make it clear. And how do you multiply? Just like if you had two binomials, then you say we FOIL it. It's the same idea. We multiply each term of this with each term of that. So I'll multiply negative 3x squared with 2x first. I get negative 6x cubed. Then negative 3x squared with 7 will give me a negative 21x squared. So I'm done with this term. I move on to this. 2x times 2x is 4x squared. 2x times 7 is 14x. Now I'm done with that. Negative 5 times 2 is negative 10x. Negative 5 times 7 is negative 35. Now I have multiplied. It's now time to combine like terms. This is the only term that has x cubed in it. So I'm done with that. And let me go ahead and strike that out. Now I will look for x squares. These are the two terms that have x squares in them. Negative 21 plus 4 is negative 17x squared. We cancel them. Then there are two terms that have x's in them. 14 minus 10 is 4x. And finally, this is the only leftover, negative 35. And we are done. So this is how you multiply. That is easy. But when you talk about composing, so f compose g of x, what you are doing is you are writing this as f of g of x. So notice, I don't have f of x anywhere here, but I have g of x. So I'm going to replace this g of x by that value. So f will stay in place and g of x is 2x plus 7. Now this is telling me to evaluate f at this input. So f of x is that. So what would f of something else would be? Well, it's like evaluating f at that input. So I'm going to copy that formula except for the x part, which is, I'm going to leave parentheses for that, and then plus 2 times, again parentheses, minus 5. So this is the structure for the function f of x. Now I have to evaluate not at x but at 2x plus 7. So that's what goes in the parentheses. That's our input. Now we will carry out the order of operations. Squares first. How do I square 2x plus 7? Well, 2x plus 7 has to be squared. Remember, it's not going to be 4x squared plus 49. Again, that's a very common mistake. When you square a binomial, you multiply, you write them twice, you write that binomial twice and use the FOIL method. So this is what we will have to do. Let's copy the rest of it. And now let's keep the negative 3 first and square this binomial. So 2x times 2x is 4x squared. 2x times 7 is 14x. 7 times 2 is 14x. 7 times 7 is 49. So notice it was not just 4x squared plus 49. We had these two middle terms. Plus, let's keep that 2 times 2x plus 7 minus 5. Now, we can simplify here. We can combine the like terms inside those parentheses. 14 plus 14 is 28. So 4x squared plus 28x plus 49. And let's still keep the multiplication. 2 times 2x plus 7 minus 5. Now let's go ahead and multiply. So negative 3, you distribute that, you get negative 12x square. Negative 3 times 28, you can use a calculator for that. It would be negative 84x. Then negative 3 times 49 is negative 147. Now we'll multiply here. 2 times 2 is 4. So 2 times 2x is 4x. Plus 2 times 7 is 14. You distribute. Multiplying a monomial with a binomial means you distribute that monomial. Minus 5. So we have broken all the parentheses. Now it's time to combine the like terms. It's negative 12x square. So that's the only place where we see x square. Now I see x here and here. Negative 84 plus 4 is negative 80x. And then I have these three constants that I can combine. Negative 147 plus 14 minus 5 is negative 138. So that's how you compose two functions. So really what you're doing is, if you're asked to compose f with g, you're putting g inside of f. So you're writing g of x first, and then that's what you're feeding into f. And then you work out the algebra and simplify.